Global defense contractors gathered in Ottawa this past week for CANSEC, the largest defense and security trade show in Canada. Mark Carney became the first Prime Minister ever to speak at that event. Defense has been a top priority for the Prime Minister, who ramped up spending on national defense as he looks to leverage that sector to help shore up the broader economy. Also in attendance at CANSEC was the former U.S. National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. The regular host of this program and the chief correspondent, political correspondent for CBC News, Rosemary Barton, spoke to Sullivan one-on-one about that defense procurement, the Russia-Ukraine war, and a whole lot more.
Jake Sullivan, nice to see you. Thank you so much for making the time for us.
Thanks for having me.
This past week, Canada announced it is going to begin negotiations to buy a fleet of aircraft from the Swedish company Saab over U.S. contenders. I wonder what you make of that decision, given Canada and the United States' long security relationship, the fact that Canada is choosing to go in that direction.
Look, as an American, I'll always root for and advocate for American companies, but I would also make the point that diversification and resilience are the watchword of the day, and building a stronger web and network of allies and partners who are all supporting one another's defense industrial bases, that's in our common mutual interest, including the American national interest. So having Canada working together with Sweden and with other NATO allies to do procurement of capabilities that can serve all of us, I don't see this as a zero-sum issue. I see this as adding to the collective strength of the alliance and of North American defense.
I mean, that's a diplomatic response, but I'm not sure everyone in the administration, the current administration, would agree with it. The decision, for instance, by Canada to become the first non-European country to join the SAFE initiative. Do you worry that is going to cause the current administration to be further frustrated with Canada or to respond or react?
It's certainly possible. The current administration has shown its instinct to take pretty tough punitive measures against countries that it thinks crosses it. It has done so specifically with respect to Canada before, and it could do so again. My view is that we are in the midst of real deep bilateral friction over a number of issues, and this is a current we're going to have to navigate. But I really hope that people will keep their eye on the bigger picture in the longer term as well, that there are just some certain fundamental drivers of the U.S.-Canada relationship that matter to us: our geography, our democracy, our shared need to build industrial and innovation strength. So I'm hopeful that we can somehow get through the current travails and come out the other side, not with the exact same relationship we had before, but still with a strong and robust partnership.
Yeah, you say it's a point of friction. Our Prime Minister calls it a rupture point, says that the relationship is really never going to go back to the way it was. So what would lead you to believe that it could at least get to a better place than where it is now, whether it be from an economic or security perspective?
Well, first of all, I think that when you look at the fundamentals, when you look at our need to invest together in common continental defense, that is not going anywhere. Second, when you look at just the depth of economic links between the U.S. and Canada, that's not going anywhere either. And third, I actually believe this is an important moment for the relationship to adapt, to adjust, to evolve. So I agree with the Prime Minister, it's not going back to how it was before. But actually, as Canada diversifies with other countries, as it builds deeper economic and security links with European countries, with Asian countries, with others, I actually think this can serve the bilateral relationship too, because the more our relationship is embedded in this larger network of like-minded democratic allies, the better for both of us. So I think in the end, common sense and shared interest will shine through. But of course, that's not inevitable. It's going to require work, and it's going to require political leadership from the United States. And I hope that we will see that in the future.
You talked about diversifying trade. One of the places where the Prime Minister has turned to is India. The other place is China. Obviously, the President was recently in China too. But given your background, I wonder what you would warn about when it comes to getting too close to China, even from an economic perspective.
Yeah. Look, I want to start by saying of course, Canada is going to have an economic relationship with China. The U.S. is going to have an economic relationship with China, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do believe that China's current economic model, which is heavily investing in dominating advanced manufacturing sectors across the board at the expense of the industrial base of virtually every other industrialized country in the world. This is a huge challenge. And it's a challenge for Canada, it's a challenge for the United States, it's a challenge for Europe, it's a challenge for everyone. So I do believe that Canada should be cautious about becoming dangerously dependent on China in certain industrial areas at the cost of Canada's long-term industrial and innovation muscle. I think this is a big challenge, and it is something that collectively the democracies of the West should be working on together. And that is why I find it so difficult to watch the current administration in the United States actually fighting with our allies rather than aligning with our allies against this very significant challenge.
I want to ask you a couple questions about Iran because of the very significant role you played during the nuclear deal negotiations during the Obama administration. What do you make of the conflict and where it is at right now, Jake Sullivan?
I think that the United States is in a very difficult spot strategically. Iran has shown it can shut the Strait of Hormuz, and we don't have the capacity to force it back open. Iran has shown that it can withstand bombing and blockades and hold the rest of the region at risk, in fact, hold the global economy at risk. And what's going to happen at the end of this, in my view, is we will end up back in a nuclear deal that looks a lot like the deal President Trump pulled out of back in 2018, and a lot like a deal he could have had without putting the US and the rest of the world through this war, which I think was misbegotten from the beginning. But of course, I believe we're going to end up in some kind of diplomatic outcome. There is still the risk that the war could resume and the situation could deteriorate even further, and we're going to have to watch carefully to see what unfolds in the coming days.
Based on your experience negotiating with the regime, what should we be watching for in terms of what the U.S. administration may have to give up in order to get this resolved? Because obviously the domestic pressures on the president right now around this are fairly intense.
I think there are three things to watch for. One is the Iranians are definitely going to demand some form of sanctions relief, significant sanctions relief. That's going to have to be part of any agreement that happens here. And so the president will have to address that demand from the Iranian side. Second, it's not entirely clear what exactly the constellation of decision-making is in Tehran right now. They have obviously had taken severe blows, the elimination of the supreme leader, the elevation of a new supreme leader, a new cast of characters in decision-making roles. How they come to a common negotiating position is something to watch as well. And then third and finally, we're going to have to see the extent to which Iran thinks we hold the cards now, so we're just going to keep increasing our demands. I think that would be a mistake on the Iranian side, that they should do a good and solid deal as opposed to try to go for a maximalist position. But it's something we're going to have to watch as a dynamic in these negotiations.
I'm going to end on Russia-Ukraine because it's obviously of concern to a lot of this country as well. It does seem as though the president has shifted focus away from trying to get a deal between Ukraine and Russia. Do you believe it to be possible right now? And if it's not going to be the U.S. president that is brokering that, where does that come from?
Well, first, the dynamics on the battlefield have shifted in Ukraine's favor in a real way. They are able to hold more Russian forces at risk, push Russian forces back, hold the line against Russian advances, and also strike deeper and deeper into Russia itself, even as they're continuing to take the onslaught from a Russian aerial bombardment. So there's a lot of pressure on Moscow right now, and I think we should watch that dynamic carefully. In terms of the negotiations, I think President Trump will try to get back to playing some role to push the parties to the table. I fear that he's going to try to twist the arm of the Ukrainians, but they are fundamentally less reliant on others now than they were a couple of years ago, and I don't think the Ukrainians will be pushed into a deal that they don't, I think, generates a just and lasting peace. So for me, the key thing to watch right now is the dynamics on the battlefield and the position Ukraine is in, because the stronger they are there, the stronger they will be in an ultimate negotiation.
Jake Sullivan, thank you for your perspective on all those various topics. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.